you came to hear about erotic immersion and why immersion is really the holy grail. Frankly, not just in the erotic. Immersion is really the holy grail in anything that you really want. So we do this when we agree, by the way. So if you see like members of the staff or the team do this, they're agreeing. It's not like a twitch. So if you start seeing them doing this, they're not waving at you. They're going, yes. And so what happens in immersion situations is that you dive deep and you build one experience on top of another experience. What's true in any kind of immersion, and gentlemen, feel free to pop in at any time, is that you have contractions and expansions, right? Like if you go to a therapist, I go to a therapist, honey, I go to a therapist like many times a week, okay? Because I love to talk about myself and have people reflect back to me what I'm actually experiencing. So when I go to my therapist, I usually have an expansion. Like, yes, that's so great. I've got it now. And then, hello, Melissa. And then what happens is I may sometimes like contract and second guess. And that's normal. That's absolutely normal. We expand and we contract. Now in normal, whatever normal is, in normal somatic hands-on sex education and the back to the body method, which is rooted in sexological body work, people go for a session. Maybe it's 90 minutes, maybe it's 2 hours. If you're really greedy like me, you book 3, okay? I would book 3 hours. In my day when I wrote Shameless plug, my book, how I ditched the diet, got naked, found true pleasure, and somehow got home in time to cook dinner. Yes, you can find it on Amazon. What I found was that if I just went once a week, I would sometimes lose the ground that I had gained in my session. And we sort of had to go back and then start again and go back and start again. In a true immersion container, you have those contractions, but you're having them in the container. So you have many expansions and many contractions. And then by the time you leave, you are so far ahead of where you started. And that is the magic of immersion. And I discovered that for myself. I discovered it. You know how they talk about, do any of you young enough out there to remember the Reese's peanut butter commercial? And there's one guy walking with the chocolate bar, and there's the other guy walking with the peanut butter, and they smash into each other. And oh my God, I got the chocolate, I got the peanut butter, and then they made a Reese's peanut butter cup. That's how this happened for me. I just figured it out because I went for one 3-hour session. I got so far. But if I went 3 times a week for 3-hour sessions, I got so far. And then if I was lucky enough to be able to get in every day for 5 days, I was going from being a planked person on a table like this, not being able to move, to getting on my knees, to starting to move, to starting to dance. And that is the magic of immersion. And that's the promise that we can offer at Back to the Body, because we figured out it's not a secret sauce, because we're not keeping this a secret. In fact, we're happy to tell anybody who wants to know how to help people go higher and farther erotically. This is the magic sauce, not a secret, but it's the magic sauce. And we're going to be having various members of the team chat about immersion and erotic immersion, and how we handle that at Back to the Body, both in our privates and in our group retreats. And I have to look at my clip notes. I'm sorry. It's been kind of a full day around here. I was supposed to invite Court Box, who will speak about how erotic immersion heals and forms deeper connections with our bodies, and share a personal witnessing, Court, from one of our room services together. So just so you understand the language out, we're talking about room service, which are private immersion retreats, where you work with a male gendered practitioner and a female gendered practitioner, unless there is a desire for 2 females and 2 males. But generally speaking, what happens is it's a male gendered practitioner and a female gendered practitioner working together to hold the space for you. And it's all about you. And then Back to the Body retreats, our core retreats, our group immersion experiences, where you also are assigned to a practitioner and a female safe court. But the curriculum, the full curriculum, is built around the group. And the private work between you and your practitioner is customized. So just to be clear about that, we're talking about 2 different immersion experiences. Did I do that okay, guys?
You did great.
Yay! I love when I do great. Gold stars. All right, Court, you take it from here. So, Court, I want you to talk about how this started, and then take it the privates.
Yep. So I met Pamela probably almost 3 years ago, and she invited me really like last minute to join the team for a Back to the Body retreat in Thailand. And then I did my second retreat with the entire team in Maui. And then during that retreat, the pandemic happened. And instead of coming home from Maui, for various reasons I won't get into, Pamela and I decided to stay in Maui for 3 months during the pandemic. And it was really this very interesting time of trying to figure out how to keep all of our businesses afloat. And also really this magical time of being in Maui when there really was not anyone on the island. I mean, I was like knee deep in sand, in water, looking at these beautiful cotton candy cumulus clouds by myself. And I'm so grateful for those experiences because I don't think I'll ever get to have them again. But one of the best things that came out of that time where we had quite a bit of time to ideate, we made a course. So there's a course on Pamela's website called Mind, Heart, Belly, Vulva. We recorded that in Maui with the help of Tim here. And we also started to ideate around privates, private immersions, because it was less about being with a group of people, and the chances of spreading COVID were much slimmer. And really, I just want to name a little bit of my background. I'm a somatic sex educator. I'm also a surrogate partner. And the reason why that's important is because in surrogacy, actually, the triadic model is really important. So a client would meet with me, the practitioner, for embodied and touch therapy, and they meet with the therapist for talk therapy. And it's this beautiful triadic way of supporting a client in their growth and learning. And that's something that we adopted, Pamela and I adopted as we started to do these private immersions, room services, if you will, with clients. And what we found was that people were just growing exponentially in the privates. And it was a model that was, it was not better than the retreats, but it was something that was different, right? To be able to be centered for 5 days or 4 days or 3 days, and sometimes 8 days, really is a beautiful experience to have. And it's interesting because I was talking to a therapist friend of mine who was a surrogate partner long ago and is now a therapist that I work with as a surrogate. And I was telling him what I was doing, and he said, that is what Masters and Johnson were doing when when they figured out what was really working for people, to really like push through boundaries and push through obstacles and really grow. It was immersion of spending, sometimes a week within this triadic model. Um, and so it was really nice to hear that kind of validation from him. I want to share kind of a funny story. Um, so we were working with a client, and we were kind of embracing some kink that they were wanting to experience, and that's something that we facilitate too. So we have a lot of different tools and a lot of different modalities that we pull from, including somatic sex education, including BDSM. I think everyone on this call has some sort of rope skills, shibari ropes, bondage skills. We're practiced in dominance and submission. And so this client was wanting to really be in that. And the practice was, come to sit at my feet, and I want you to crawl to the studio and bring back a collar and bring it to my feet and lay it there.
Can I make it pause for a moment?
Yeah.
So this was a client that who came to us. If I'm thinking I know the story, just for context for everybody. If you're feeling intimidated by that, like right off the bat. This was a client who came to us with a dress down to her ankles and a hair in a bun. And when she first got on the table, couldn't get undressed and couldn't move. And then really invested in coming and doing this work with us. And this may have been her third 5 or 8 day retreat. So, and think how fast she progressed in that amount of time, from not being able to move or take off her underwear or be seen, to discovering that she liked kink and wanted to wear a collar. So she's on her 3rd or 4th retreat. Yes, Court?
Yeah, thank you for naming that.
And crawl away.
So they crawled back and put the collar at my feet. I put the collar on. And so we had this amazing session. And when we were talking afterwards, and we do this thing at the end of session where we process and we say, what was hot, what was hard, what was unexpected? And that question came up, and they said, what was hot was crawling to get the collar and bring it back to you and have you put it on me. And I said, great, wonderful. And then we said, what was hard? And they said, what was hard was crawling to the studio to get the collar and bring it back to you. And I think what is interesting about that is sometimes the things that are the hottest for us are also the hardest. We are constantly dealing with messages through images and text in magazines and media around who we should be and how we should show up in the world. And that sometimes gets in the way of our eroticism. And sometimes it is the very thing that is fueling that erotic piece in ourselves that is yet to be discovered. I'll say that in the past 2 years, Pamela and I have worked really closely with probably, I don't know, I would say 10 women.
10 women who come back.
Yeah.
To the private retreats, 10 women who come back for 3, 5, and 8 day retreats almost every 2 months, in which case they fill our calendar.
Yeah. And it's been a combination of private work and retreats.
And couples work.
And couples work too, that's right. And I'll say that these women are different. They're not the same humans as walked into the door. And it's such an honor to have been a part of that journey with them, and to see just how bright and shiny they are. They're just, I don't know how else to say it other than they exude this kind of like glitter about them as they walk through the world. And it's a really like a point of pride to witness that, specifically on retreats and as we meet with them more and more. So I don't know. Do you want me to say more, or do you feel like that's enough, Pamela?
I think that's lovely. And I'm actually going to go out of order a little bit. And I'm still in order. And Court, feel free to pop in. And again, anyone on the team, if you want to just pop in a comment, please. We don't hold to those kinds of ceremonies here because I want all of your brilliance. I'm going to say something, and I'm going to throw it to Cosmo. I'm going to brag and celebrate that all of you who joined this call as a participant are actually getting to speak to somatic through the body, somatic sex educators who are masters in their field. And that's an incredible statement to me. These are people, again, regular, normal sexological body works or tantra folks don't get to work with the quantity of women that Back to the Body gets to work with. We were sold out through Maui next year. Lucky day for somebody. We have one spot that just opened in Puglia, Italy. And Christy, near the end of the call, she got on. Yay, Christy. We'll pop up that link. One woman just had to change her plans. But we have been sold out. We've been sold out for 12 years. For 12 years. And we have studies that have been done about our work. And this team, I'm going to say something I don't usually say. You're not going to find this anywhere in the world. You're not going to find teachers and people who work together and mastermind anywhere like this. It's an extraordinary group of humans. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me? And we'll be a little prideful about it. We're also one of the few groups that actually have a study about their work. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, about what you can actually count on as an outcome of immersion. And we can actually say that because we've been studied. Can you imagine? And they weren't looking to study us. They wanted to study somatic, hands-on, erotic bodywork and its impact on women. And they chose us because for 12 years, we had a dependable, repeatable, consistent model. And so therefore, we could be studied. And the outcome was extraordinary. And with that, don't you love those kinds of introductions, Cosmo? I'm going to introduce Cosmo Means, who also has been working one-on-one with me and with Pasha, with privates, and at our full-on Back to the Body retreats. And he's going to speak a little bit about what embodied learning is for women. You've got the ball.
Thanks, Pamela. Appreciate that. Hi, everyone. Thanks for that beautiful intro. We really do have such a special team every single time we come together. It just feels so much support. So we don't work as an island. And that's one of the biggest things with Back to the Body, that when I'm working at home, I'm alone. Sessions are maybe once a week at most. And so to be able to do immersion with a team where every single thing we decide, every exercise we create, every experience we collaborate together, and we have fun, we get crunchy, we talk about where things worked, where they didn't work. And through that, we live and breathe what we're offering to all of you, to the community. And what is it that we're offering, as Pamela said, like what is embodied learning? So the thing that I really like to describe is that my body is a tuning fork. Okay, so we want to really create space for everyone to breathe into just being able to trust this body. So when we have decisions to make, when we have desires to vocalize, that that we can have this sense that we can know for ourselves, and not from necessarily a strictly intellectual space, although that's part of it, but we can know what feels right for us by listening, because we've created an opportunity for our body to have a voice. And we do that just by basically, naming that we feel that the wisdom of our body isn't important enough to listen. And we breathe into our desires when we choose to vocalize them to the world. At Back to the Body, we have a ton of time to practice. So that's a big part of it, is that, we can talk about change all we want. We can talk about our desires all we want, but we don't often have people in our lives that necessarily can hear all our desires, that have the language or fluency to talk through our requests with us. And so as a team, we come and we sort of devotionally commit ourselves to you, your process, where you're at, your body. And we give an opportunity to practice this embodied learning. This isn't something that you can intellectualize. You really have to be like, oh, how does this feel? What comes up for you? When you breathe into this desire, what comes up for you? And we basically just walk through where your body's at, what's happening, what you want, and ideally creating this choice and voice so that you can, first of all, be able to give that to yourself, and then potentially be able to request that from others. But it starts with an embodied practice of learning that we offer in immersion.
Cosmo, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Great.
So what has to be in place for someone it sounds like really great. I'm going to breathe into that. And I'm going to breathe into this. I'm going to open to my desires. And that sounds like really peachy keen. But I'm scared to death. You're telling me like all this great stuff. And I'm going to get naked and you're going to touch me where? And who are you? And how do I know that you're not some weirdo? So what are the things, Cosmo, that foundationally as a company, Back to the Body, has put in place? And what do we offer? What is necessary for, we're going to talk, we work with all kinds of people. We're going to talk about women. What is necessary for women to have all these delightful things that you're talking about?
Great question, Pamela. I love that. So starting from ground zero, you're coming in. Who are we? What are we doing here? So we have basic agreements, right? So we have group container agreements, what we call creating a safe enough container. Absolutely, we can't say it's 100% safe because there's a lot of variables, and you're one of them. But we create a safe enough container to explore. The container is held by women with male-bodied practitioners offering touch. We have very specific rules of how we engage with participants. That includes we keep our clothes on. The touch is one way. We use gloves for any type of internal touch to protect both you and us. And we don't have contact outside. So there's relationally speaking, so people's partners feel safer with that. We keep a really tight container with real clear boundaries, real clear agreements. And what that does is, like Pamela said, that creates enough safety for you to feel like, okay, all right, they've thought through this. They've done this before. And that's really what it's about. We have been here for 12 years. Back to the Body has. I've been with Back to the Body for 6 of those. And we're always refining in order to offer what Pamela was just asking about, in order to offer a safe enough opportunity to step in and do something that's risky, do something that will push you to your edge, will put you in sort of the yellow of what we like to say uncomfortable, but not unsafe.
Thank you. And in the study that was done where they used, I want to be super clear about this, where they used Back to the Body as a model to study, somatic sex education, the number one thing the women cited over and over again, they were able to drop into this work because they felt safe. So if you're feeling hypervigilant, you're feeling like you could be threatened or hurt or taken advantage of, how can you relax into all of these delicious desires and opportunities? How could you have court, have you go get a caller, right? You have to feel super, super safe and embodied to do that. And that's something that happens over time and space. And safety is number one. And so when Cosmo, just for clarification, says there won't be contact, what he's talking about is we keep private communications between practitioners and our clients separate. So there are the female safe ports. There's Christy, Pamela, Melissa, that you can be in contact with. In fact, once you say yes to a private retreat or a group retreat, you're invited into our safe portal on Facebook where there are support groups and there are pop-up workshops. And that happens even if your retreat is in 8 months or your private is in 8 months. You are immediately brought into the container and given support. Is there anything else, Cosmo, you want to say about embodiment?
That pretty much wraps it up, but just around the safety element, just noting that, Court mentioned the triadic model. So just noting that this is a container that's created, held, and safe ported by women for women. So there's a woman walking you to your session, a woman, receiving you, either picking you up or receiving you in what we call the nest after your session. And everything is transparent. So if there's anything that's ever a concern in your sessions, you talk about it with your safe ports, they talk about it with us, we all workshop it. It's this really well held, what we call triadic model of care that we're offering.
And if you, thank you. And if you want to imagine that in a private situation, we have different models for how we present those. And we can talk about that with you individually, but the core model of private retreats is that it could be Pamela and Court, or Pamela and Cosmo, or Cosmo and Kasia and Christy with Tim, and Christy with Ron, and Barry with Melissa or Christy or Pamela, or Ron, we can't see your face yet, sweetheart. I'm working with Christy or Kasia. And so Melissa, so we can make all kinds of, yes, we can make all kinds of switch ups. But then there are those two humans, those two highly educated sex educators, the man and the woman, holding the container. Sometimes, depending on who their practitioners are, because we have different skill sets. The females have different skill sets. Some of us are also certified sex educators. Some of us are trained in somatica. Some of us have psychotherapy backgrounds and family counseling backgrounds. Depending on who the team is, the female can be in the session, either hands-on with you or supporting or coaching and observing and journaling and doing all kinds of things. So in privates, you have two people completely focused on building a curriculum for you. And I think that's really important, is that safety of having those two people. And then again, in a house, deep immersion, just for you. And then the larger retreats, which are, we try to give tons of private attention. You'll have a safe port and your own practitioner, but it's also a larger curriculum for everybody to work with. Most of our women right now are doing both. They're doing private retreats and they're doing the group retreats. And it's no longer just Court and I. But true, we are finite. And we have all these incredible practitioners. And so last year, we started to open the door. And we've had private retreats. I've worked with Barry. Christy has worked with Tim. I've worked with Cosmo. Cosmo has worked with Kasia. Ron has worked with this one and that one, and Melissa is about to pop in with Tim for a private. And so all of the people that you see here are available to do privates. And I would even speak to you, or Christy will, and we find who are the right practitioners to do a private with. And we do that with the group retreats, is that we have an interview and we think, who's your best safe port and who's your best practitioner? Do I have that right? Yes? Yay. Tim, it's your moment. Are you ready? So Tim's our guy from Hawaii. By the way, Cosmo is from Victoria, Canada. And Tim's going to speak about how this work supports women with trauma and why immersion versus, I'm not sure why it says versus, why immersion and table work and hands-on work can really support women in releasing trauma. And he may even share a personal story that he would probably share with Christy working, because they've been a dynamic duo for a while, with one of their clients. And Christy, feel free to pop in around that if you want to.
Absolutely.
So now we're talking about trauma.
Well, and I want to say it's not just that, because there's a whole lot of pleasure there too. I'll get to that. So I come to this work out of counseling, psychology, mental health, and especially noticing. I started doing EMDR, got trained by the Veterans Administration to do eye movement desensitization and reprocessing with vets returning from overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan. And what I noticed is that in my counseling practice, when I was doing these 50-minute sessions once a week, what we sort of call one-off. So Pamela was speaking to this a little bit earlier. I was with people for 2, 3, 4 years, every week, 50 weeks a year. Sometimes I took a week off, but it was, I got places, after 2, 3, 4 years, we'd get some real traction on what they were going through. And then when I noticed with EMDR and the vets is as soon as we started to involve the body, that time frame shortened. Instead of doing the same work that I did in 3 years, once I got people with their bodies, I did that 3-year work in 9 months. And then I started to do immersion work, where I was doing work intensely with people with PTSD, sort of in a weekly basis. And they would do the same work that I would do in 3 years in a week. And so I really wanted to speak that about immersion as this magical thing. And the beautiful thing about that is because we were sort of a research based clinical mental health center, we were also tracking these people long term, and the gain stayed. Whereas if I stopped seeing people for talk therapy, oftentimes they would sort of move backwards again. But this combination of immersion and somatic, in the body learning, not just talking based, not just sort of cognitive processing up in the head. And so what happens is that the same neurobiology, the same central nervous system highways in our body connect with both pain and pleasure. It's just sensation coming in. And so what happens oftentimes in these back to the body, either the retreats or the room service sort of private experiences, because you're held in an incredibly safe container. And I want to say one more thing about that safety, Cosmo. I thought that was great. There is something about receiving touch that doesn't have an agenda from you. Almost all touch is relational. You hug a friend, some of the only non-agenda touch happens, and even this is sometimes we pick up a baby and we're not trying to do anything or get anything from the baby. It's just like, let's touch you because you're a being. And so when you're on the table with these boundaries in place and this team of women and men around you, there is this magic that unfolds where you receive this touch that doesn't have any, that's not trying to get anything, that's not transactional with you in any way. And all of a sudden, your nervous system opens up. And this immense potential for both pleasure and the movement of things that have been inside you and maybe stuck for years comes alive in ways that, to me, are just, I'm a scientist at heart, but this is nothing short of miraculous. And trauma can move in these places. And that's what Cosmos speaks to, safe enough container. We can't guarantee that you're not going to have deep feels. And some of these feels might be deeply, deeply uncomfortable at times, but they're all surrounded by and cushioned by pleasure. And pleasure is what we're doing.
Come feel with us, right, Tim? Like, and come feel for 5 days.
And the immersion does it. And what happens then is Cosmos spoke about finding our voice and choice and being able to say what we want in our bodies. And then people go out and they're doing that in their regular lives with their boss at work or their family. They're able to articulate more clearly what they want in their existence because they can do that in their body. And so, I can speak to the trauma because I do know that this work is incredibly healing. And I think it's really important to speak to the fact that pleasure is the conduit. That's what we're doing here. We are helping you find pleasure in your life. And really sinking that into your body is not something you just get once a week when you go out on date night or something like this, but every day, pleasure in your body. And that's what immersion does. So
pleasure is transformational.
Yeah.
Pleasure is absolutely transformational, whether it's around body acceptance. I mean, I actually forget my shape or size or age or even I'm going to say something weird, like even my gender. I just become a body. I become a feeling, moving, breathing person on the table that is expansive. And it fuels my creativity. It has enabled me to drop the armor that I used to walk around with. Trauma does pass through your body. I don't really understand the science of it. I just know the outcome. The outcome is, you have the science, you're going to start science.
Well, not the science, actually the opposite. Like I wanted to speak to that in terms of a personal experience that we have with a woman. We were in a room service, Christy and myself, and there was a client who'd come to us, and there was some things that were really holding her back that had happened early on in her life. And in the sort of 6-day period she was with us, there was this transformation. And Christy, I'd love you to like sort of chime in at some point on this. Like there was this a huge sort of building of safety and trust for a day or two, and this movement into the body. And then there was this sort of miraculous unleashing of a whole lot of energy, past energy. And the last couple of days, the retreat, there was just this incredible joy and claiming of a body. It was watching someone take ownership and almost inhabit their body for the first time in a long, long time. And it was just, Christy, I'd love to hear your reflection.
I remember that moment, and that's why I think the immersion is so important, because you're held in such a safe container, and our brains need to fire to rewire. And sometimes what it's firing, especially with trauma, is scary. So you want to be in this amazing container that has you and holds you. And I remember afterwards, almost like feeling my safe porting was a little bit like reparenting, in that I drew her a bath and just was present for her and got her, the yummy things that you would actually get maybe even a child for a bath, like some gummy bears and chocolates and sparkling water. And then after her bath, tucked her in. And what better way to like heal through an experience that alone and not in that safe container would be so scary, so scary.
And you said it so right, because the portion of the thing was what was happening in session was pleasure touch. And so all of this healing wasn't being done like through this pain model that we're so used to. We're so used to going in and pouring out our pain, but the body does all that work with you out. You have to do those things. And you get the orgasm treat as well if that's not how it happens. So check.
Thank you. And what I wanted to say about that is, yes, women come to us many times to work through, we call capital T trauma or lowercase trauma. But what's also true is that you don't have to have a trauma story. You don't have to have like that's not the whole pass to learn to love your body and to learn to experience pleasure. You don't need a whole pass. Okay? You can come because you're curious about your body. You can come because you have wonderment. You have wonderment about what is possible for your body to feel. And often in partnerships, especially people in long-term partnerships, you get in this loop of only dancing with what your partner is able to offer you. And sometimes there's fear around sharing your deepest fantasies with a partner, because if they find out about this or that, what if you live with them? And what if they think that it's silly that you get turned on by the Curious George monkey and you need to tell somebody about that? You can do that. And you even can play with the Curious George monkey. And so, I'm making up a story. But the idea is that you don't need to feel like you're broken to come and have a private retreat or go to a group retreat. You don't need an excuse. You can come because you want an adventure. You can come because you're curious. You can come because you're erotically bored and you're sick of people telling you that you have a low libido, because that's bullshit. You don't have a low libido. You're probably bored. What I can tell you is immersion will quickly support you in not being bored and finding your libido. And with that little speech of mine, I'm going to throw it to Barry Carl, who is an amazing member of our team. And he is going to talk about how immersion work can help women over the course of 3 or more days to find voice and choice, and how that can help change her sex life. That's all, Barry. Just wrap that up for us, okay?
Just that. Okay, cool. Tim talked about. Oh, let me talk about me for a second. I'm
Talk about you for a second.
Right. I came to this work through being a somatic therapist and body worker. So that's enough about me. Tim already mentioned choice and voice. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what that means, it basically means that you can say what you want, what you like, what you need. You can say what you don't like, what you don't want, what you don't need, how you want what you want, when you want what you want or not. That's basically choice and voice. The choice is yours. All of our sessions are client controlled, really, basically. That's part of the safety. I don't want to go into the learning part of it, but I just want you to know that you are ultimately safe in the container. Why 3 days or more? It's really very simple. Um, it takes about 3 days, 3 sessions for you to completely, or as fully as you can, drop your hypervigilance. That's the bottom line, is it takes about that long. So your first 2 sessions, they may be great. Your third session will generally be the best of the series, because you've gotten to a point with your practitioner where you feel safe enough to drop the hypervigilance that you walk around with habitually. Um, it also, the 3 days or more, and that's important because 3 days is a minimum. 5 days, 8 days, they sound long, but they're not. They're just incredible growth mediums. There is something that I call, and this is a fancy title, optimum intervallic learning. In other words, the periods between your sessions are short enough that your body rewires successfully in a shorter amount of time. That's one of that we've been talking around about that, but that's what happens neurologically in your sessions because of the frequency that your sessions are repeated at. Your body rewires and learns on a deeper level faster. That's just how it is. And the third factor in this, I have to say, I know Pamela bragged about the team. Uh, I don't know if she said enough. Um,
Tell
when
me more.
Yes, okay. When we're working with choice and voice, this is a very scary thing for a lot of people, to say what you want, what you need, what you like, to be able to ask for more of it, to be able to say, stop, no, I don't want that, or I want it, that's close, but I want this. And to have the person respond to you with unrelenting kindness, with caring, with skill, with compassion, with heart, is an extraordinary experience. It also helps heal the masculine wound. I think that these are among the most extraordinary men on the planet. And Pamela has assembled this team of this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
And women.
And women, that's true. But I'm talking about the guys because I've worked with them and I
It's
know
okay.
them.
I just feel like I needed to circle my girls in.
Okay. Them too. I'm sorry,
too.
girls. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But and uh, truly working with any one of these men, and they're all different, and they're all incredible. There are in a world of body workers, of erotic body work, they really are the absolute best I have ever known. I've worked with every single one of them, and they all blow me away. So imagine stepping into a situation with one of these men and being able to experiment even with saying the things that just stick in your throat or seize your heart or just make your gut freeze with fear, and having them say, great, okay, time after time after time. Believe me, it will change you profoundly. As Tim said, you can take this back out in your life and you will find things coming out of your mouth that surprise you, and probably everybody around you as well. And you become a lightning rod for your own truth, and you become a model for others.
I want to
And you probably come back to retreats.
I want to pick up on something that you said about speaking desire and, this safe place to speak your desire. What is also true is that often we don't know what our desire is, that we don't have any idea about what could maybe feel good on our skin. Like, do we like pointy things on our skin? Do we like soft things on our skin? Would we enjoy feeling deeply into our body and wearing a blindfold, or having ropes, or a plethora of things that our bodies have the possibility of experiencing? And what we do is, you don't have to worry if you don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I like. I have no idea. What are all those things on your table?
And your practitioner says, great. Let's find out. Let's find out what you like.
Exactly. And maybe there'll be furry, soft things, and warm coconut oil, and soft sensation, and deeper sensation, and all kinds of possibilities. You don't have to manage this. We will manage introducing you to the possibilities that your body might want to experience. You may ask for tastings. And once you get an idea of what you want, with the practitioner supporting you and the safe port supporting you, you'll find it much easier to have voice and choice, because you'll get to know. But this isn't like if you're listening to this call and you're like, but I don't know what I want. I don't know what this is about. We got you. All you have to know is that you're hungry and you want a safe place to eat. And I promise you, you will be served. And you'll be served the most delicious Epicurean experience that is possible to be given. And you will find your choice and voice with some support. You're not expected to know everything. Does anyone want to pop in before I pass the ball? I feel like Court wants to say something.
Yeah, I want to say something about day 3. Usually in a 5-day arc, or even an 8-day arc, day 3 is usually when there's kind of this, we get over a hill, or the client has this aha moment that there's it's like a shift, and it's palpable. And again, going back to Barry was saying, it takes a minute to drop in, right? You're leaving everything behind. You're dropping into being in a container with your practitioners, and you're kind of stepping out of culture. You're stepping out of your family life and really into this immersive space of discovering yourself. And it's usually on day 3 that there is this hurdle that is people are jumping over. And so I just want to say that the multiple day arc is there for a reason, and it is important. That's all.
Thank you. And that's why we don't do 1 days.
That's right. We
do not do 1 days. It's not an option. 3 days for private is the shortest amount of time we'll do, because you need the arc. And then our retreats are always, what are they always? 6, 7, or 8 days long. You always get 5 sessions in a full-on retreat. In private, you may get as many as 2 sessions a day, or 1 very long session, like a 3-hour or 4-hour session, depending on what is going on with you and your arc. And at the retreats, sessions are anywhere between 90 minutes, 2 hours for an expansion retreat, or 3 hours at a mastery. So there's a lot of variation. It's a very big menu to choose from. Barry, any last words before I throw the ball?
Thank you. No, thanks for filling in.
Terrific.
You did great.
I love that. I have 2 gold stars. I'm going for 3 before this night's out. Ron, we're going to get to you in a moment. Ron's going to talk a little bit about his work and also lead us out with some embodiment exercises and breath. And I'm just going to hold that, Ron. Is that all right with you? Ron, I'm talking to you, darling. I'm not sure that he hears me, which is a little terrifying.
I have a poor connection. Can you hear me? That's fine. Whatever you choose to do, and I will contribute how I can.
You can't, darling. Not right now. You can't. But you're kind of cute and funny looking with that camera angle. That goofy expression on your face. But we love you. Just keep smiling. I'll talk about you. So I want to actually bring I was given another job. So I was asked by Christy to invite the women on our team who are a mixture of certified somatic sex educators and psychotherapists and just all round smart cookies, to talk about why women in the container are so important to this work and what is a safe port and what is the job of a safe port. I want to make a caveat that some of the women in this group, particularly Kasia and Melissa and myself, do hands-on work. That the 3 of us do hands-on work and are sometimes called into sessions to fully participate in that way. And Christy has a psychotherapy license, and she's trained in Somatica, and which is another school of sex education, and can participate highly. But everyone sort of brings their own talents to the container. So, Christy, do you want to lead off, please, and talk about what a safe port is?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I am not just a person on the team. I came in as a participant, like many of you that are listening. And so I did not come in to heal any trauma. When I came to my first retreat in Portugal, I came to experience pleasure post-menopause and see what my body could do. And so I found out what my body can do. And then eventually was the good lightning. That was perfect.
That was perfect timing.
That's exactly right. And so what is beautiful is Pamela has 2 arms that can hold so many beautiful women coming out of session. And what was created is the safe port out of that, because there's another woman other than just Pamela there to catch the women. And that's kind of where the safe porting came from, and the whole triadic model of that container beyond just Pamela, but other practitioners coming in. And so by history, I'm a psychotherapist, and I love that work, and I think it's powerful. And this is so much more. What I experienced in just a session or 2, I could have been in therapy for 5 years and never gotten that information or that knowledge. And I think what I enjoy about safe porting when you're going into session, what I enjoy is just holding space for you while you're getting ready for your session. And after a session, just being available to nourish you in whatever way, whether that's through touch and, like I mentioned, the bathing ritual, or that's through holding and cuddling, whether it's through moving our bodies and going for a walk, or nourishing through the food that we prepare beautifully in our immersion container. I really think it's a special connection. A lot of us maybe even have, Barry touched on the wound with the masculine, and many of the women coming in have wounds with the feminine through various ways in their life. And so I think there's an aspect of being able to heal that and allowing the feminine in, and trusting the feminine in to not be in competition with you, to be in celebration, to be, standing there like, yes, for your pleasure. And there's just something special about that, to have a woman on site. And I think when you talked about it in your book, Shameless, Pamela, you had the triadic model, but it was women staying down the street or in a car, like, making sure that after a session, you were held and you were supported
and celebrated.
And celebrated. And so that's what's been created here in the container. And so I thoroughly enjoy the work. Tim and I have done a lot of work together, and I'm hoping to work with Ron and Barry in the near future. And it just really is a special container. And it's almost like you're investing in the rest of your life, how you want to show up, not just in areas of pleasure, but I feel like in areas of confidence, and how you just want to move about the world, and how embodied you want to be moving about the world. And that can really happen in this transformative container.
Yes, it can. Yeah. It certainly can. I mean, to be honest, this work changed my life. I think everybody here has been on the table. Everyone here has done this work as a client before we became practitioners. This work is transformational. This work is ongoing. This work is a practice. And I've been practicing. I'm going to stop saying how long I've been practicing, because it's getting too easy for people to figure out how old I am. And I'm starting to dislike that. I've been doing this for a long, long time. And what's true about that is I'm still emerging. I'm absolutely still emerging. And I think I will be emerging erotically until the end of my life. This is an ongoing practice. Sexuality is not linear. It's evolutionary. And it's really good for you. It's really healthy for you. I'm going to throw the ball. You would check, Christy. Okay. I'm going to throw this ball to Melissa. And I would love Melissa to talk about what we offer women in immersion, your role, what your presence, and possibly give an example of some of the work that you offer during a session with perhaps the male practitioner. Like, how would you, as the female practitioner, offer support actually inside the session?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Pamela. I'm Melissa D, and I'm based in Austin, Texas. And yeah, let's talk about what we offer in the container. So our role is to really support and nourish you. We are there to help prepare you for your sessions. Sometimes we may cook, get you tea, really be your ally and grounding. One of my favorite things to do is help with the process coming out of session. So much like we've mentioned many times in this call, that triadic model, Some of us are not trained therapists, but we're there to really be there for you, to hear, to process, to reflect. Yeah, and just really enhance the whole experience. Some other things that we may include, and again, like all of us are different creatures, we bring our different gifts, but it may include like erotic writing. And that's something that Christy really offers, and coaching, meditation, yoga, maybe some sort of movement. Maybe you want to do orgasmic yoga, something to jumpstart your morning or something to wind down your evening. Maybe you want to get practiced in how to regulate your nervous system. And this is the other important thing about immersion, is it's really tailored to you. And so we kind of put our cards on the table, and we're there to kind of plug in and offer you different things that's custom to you. Yeah, like I said, reflection, aftercare, especially if there's any exploration with BDSM, erotic learning and education. So, a lot of people may want to do vulva mapping or vulva, some other work that's that pairs up with the sessions that you're doing with your practitioner. We're also there to create ritual, and like Pamela mentioned, some of us are somatic practitioners, and so we can come in and offer that one directional touch. And so maybe we come in and hold your feet, maybe placing a hand on the chest, maybe anchoring your body in another way. And so it's another way for you to really get clear on what kind of touch do you actually want and what would be most nourishing for you. And we're there to give you ideas and offer suggestions and let you really guide what would really make this powerful for you. Just seeing if I included everything. So yeah, I mean, going into immersion and having that anchor, that feminine presence there is quite profound. And Christy mentioned it too, is there's not about competition. It's really about bringing in and even having an opportunity to heal and trust other women and trust that feminine, and then having that paired up with your healing with the masculine or what you're doing with your practitioners. It's all quite magic, in my humble opinion. So
Your humble opinion.
very, very humble opinion.
There's something that we often don't have in our lives. And that's, I'm just going to say it, a mother's touch. That we don't receive nurturing. We don't, oftentimes we bathe our clients. And sometimes the men do it, but also very often the female safe port will, after a session, take the client and offer a bath and wash and talk and offer a glass of water or a glass of wine if it's late in the day, if that's wanted. And it's, or hold and cuddle and rock and have your back petted or your hair brushed. And that kind of really tender tendering that you may or may not have ever received from your mother or from a sister. And that is also incredibly healing and possible to experience. I'd love to introduce Kasha. Hey, Kasha. And Kasha's going to speak to, as a woman, what do you see? What do you see is really important in the table work? And how one session builds into the next. Completing my sentence there.
I hope that I can add something to this conversation that hasn't already been said, because I feel like so many people have touched on so many beautiful things. But the table work specifically, and it's been mentioned before, is an opportunity to really lean into yourself in a way that is not presented in life just naturally. You're always concerned about another person's well-being in any sexual or intimate situation. It's like, how are you doing? Are you okay? And in table work specifically, it's such an incredible experience to go so deeply into yourself and let go of that concern, to let go of the caretaking and the people pleasing, and just like really go inwards. And so when that experience starts to happen and we drop everything that like keeps us tethered to our responsible lives, there's just such deep, incredible wisdom that can emerge from the body. And like it's such a gift that we get to have these bodies that are just so sensitive. We just have this skin that's all over our bodies, and it's so like we can touch ourselves in different ways that make it feel amazing. So it's like an exploration into that juiciness. It can start with just pleasure mapping of just like, let's just learn what feels good. And it can move into heightened states of arousal and learning how to have multiple orgasms. And it can be like soft and tender. There's just so many aspects of being in this body that are delicious that we just don't usually have time or space to experience in our day-to-day lives. So this table work specifically offers this, like, this table is kind of like a pedestal almost for your body, where you're like, okay, now is the time to be devoted to myself, right? This is, you're getting up on this table and this is the time and space where you're like, okay, let's do it. So I think it's pretty incredible.
Me too. I'm going to give a few facts. You ready for facts? Who wants facts? Who wants proof? Who wants a guarantee? Well, I can give you a little, not 100%, but pretty damn good. So this is what we got. So at the end of the study, remember that study that I kind of threw at you at the beginning? It gave us some outcomes. So I'm going to give them to you because I know you want to know in the end of the day, what's going to change in my life? And can you prove it to me? But what I can tell you is that quantitatively, which means that there was enough people to give enough answers that proved something as an outcome of doing immersion retreats with Back to the Body specifically, are, drum roll please, number one, we feel better about our pussies. And that's called genital self-esteem. Never knew really if there was genital self-esteem, but women who come to Back to the Body to leave pussy proud, they feel better about their vulvas. That's pretty good. You know, I decorated mine now. I have little gold rings because, you know, I'm very excited about my vulva now, and I like to show it off to myself. And so you will leave feeling better about your vulva to improve genital self-esteem. You will leave feeling better about your body. And we have women all shapes and sizes from ages as young as 22. And my mother was 92 when she came to a retreat. Yes, 93. Thank you, Barry. My mother was 93 when she came to a retreat. And we have women all in between. So it didn't matter how old they were, how they thought about their beauty, what the world thought about their beauty. They left feeling much more confident about how they walked in the world. They reported that they released trauma for those who had trauma issues, that they had healing around trauma. They reported that they were able to learn to speak their desire. They reported that they were better able to initiate sex when they got home and more able to ask for what they wanted in sessions. They reported healing their relationships with other women, that sisterhood became something that was possible for them, that women who didn't trust other women actually learned how to trust other women. They learned about their arousal and they learned about orgasm. And that's a lot of really neat stuff that you can get in a retreat. And maybe more. I'm not looking at my cliff notes right now. 95% of the women return. And they don't return because it isn't working. They return because they want more. And I always want more. Everyone knows that about me. I'm sorry. but it's true. Sorry, not sorry. And I support you. We support you in your moreness. We support you in your bigness. What I like to say, you think I'm big? Be bigger. Climb on my shoulders and be a bigger flower. And then invite another flower to get on those shoulders and be a bigger flower. And that's what this work is all about. We're going to open it up for questions. I want to introduce Ron, even if his connection is not great. He was going to lead us in some breath and embodiment. He had a doctor's appointment. He's trapped in a car. So he can't dance with us and breathe with us and do all the things. Ron is singularly responsible for the fact that Back to the Body exists in the world. Because you know what? Most everything in this world is a team sport. You know, yeah, go on your own, be autonomous, la, la, la. Great. But there is nothing like a partner. And there is nothing like a team. And there is nothing like a group. And that man said yes. 12 years ago, I turned to him in his house where Back to the Body started in Metchosin. So I now can maybe even say it right, Canada. And I said, you know, maybe it's time, Ron. Would you do this with me? And Ron said yes. And without his yes, we wouldn't be here right now. Without your yes, you won't know what we're talking about until you actually give your yes to change your life. And Ron, you know, talked about obstacles. Well, what about space? And what about food? And what about money and how we're going to fill it? There were obstacles. Would women come? But he still said yes, even though there were obstacles. And I was a pain in the ass. He almost killed me in a Costco one day. It's a true story. If you come to retreat, I'll tell you about it. He still said yes. He was still willing. And that willingness with his yes and not letting the obstacles stop him from his yes is what created Back to the Body. And I'm really proud to say that in the 12 years that Back to the Body has existed, I don't know the percentage, but I think we've retained 90% of our practitioners. And Neil, who took some time off, is back. In case none of you know that, let me inform you, Neil is back. He's one of the original cores. We tend to keep our people, and those people grow and blossom with us. And if you come to a retreat or do a private with Ron, he's going to be at many of our retreats. You'll get to breathe and move with him. Maybe you'll be lucky enough to be in his table. And know that even though he allows me to call myself the founder of Back to the Body, that you'll be with the guy who said yes. And without that partnership, we wouldn't be here today. And so I know you have a shitty connection. You can't do all the things you were going to do with us. But I want to name you and acknowledge you and let the world know he's also available for privates. And lucky you. I have a woman who did a private with Ron, who's coming to Colorado. She can't wait to show Ron, because that was her very first session ever, was with Ron. And then she started to do privates with Court and I and do retreats. And she said two things to me. She said, I can't wait for those hands. I can't wait for those big hands, that incredible expanse of Ron on my body again. And she said, and I can't wait to show him how far I've come. So Ron, eat your Wheaties, because she's coming for you. Okay? She's coming for you. And he's got a beautiful voice. And he'll be with us soon in Colorado. And you can do a private with him. And so the invitation is we're going to answer a few questions. If you have them, you can speak them. You can book a consultation with Christy. And Christy's going to put that up. She's also going to put up the link for privates. And there are many different ways to do private retreats, just like there are many different ways to come to a Back to the Body group retreat. What I will tell you, we sell out fast. No lie that we were sold out all through to Maui. Maybe we can even put up that Maui link, which is, I don't know, in March or April of next year. But now we have that one opening in Italy this year. The same thing with privates. We are, as much as I've opened the door to my team, we are still a finite resource. We are human beings with families and lives, and there's only so much that we can do. And so if you want in, women who know are booking far in advance with us. And remember, once you say that yes, that yes that Ron gave me, once you say that yes, you're in our group. You have access to the support groups. You have access to the workshops. You have access to our recommendations and our reading materials. All we need is that yes, and we can help you find the right place. And Christy can help you with that. And I can be available to help you with that. But I send everybody to Christy first. And then you want to talk to me, I'm available. And we would love to take your questions. And if anyone would like to ask them, you can just type them in the chat box. Give lots of notice. Yes. We need lots of notice. We need lots of notice. And private retreats can be held almost anywhere. We've done them internationally, where we've connected them to the full group retreats. They can happen really most anywhere. We do a lot on the West Coast and the East Coast. We're getting our Maui house ready to receive privates. West Hollywood, Canada, Victoria. They come in all different shapes and sizes, and we can make the right one for you. So does anyone have any questions for us? Oh, please make up a question. Where do I sign up? You can go to the website, see what's available. I highly recommend. Chrissy, did you put up your calendar? I highly recommend, if you are even the least bit tickled. Have you ever had mother-daughter attendees other than you and your mom? Yes, we have. And we're about to have another mother-daughter pair in Costa Rica. And we've had sisters. And no question, just a great big, can't wait for Puglia. Yes, Puglia is going to be hot. And that's where we have that one opening now, is in Puglia, Italy. Yes, we've had we've had best friends. We just had best friends attend a retreat. And we've had couples for privates. We do a lot of couples work in our private retreats. And so if you wanted, sometimes that happens after a woman has done her work, has had some experiences with Back to the Body, and then she will often invite her partner in. And then we have options for men to do their own work with our sister brother organizations, and we will feed that to you as you are ready for it. But we have a large, expansive web where we can support people, all genders, all orientations, even though Back to the Body in its initial core is a women's retreat. And we do trans women and bisexual women and lesbian women at our retreats. And yes, you can have a female practitioner at our retreats. If you don't want to work with a man, you don't have to. You can work with a woman. So we are flexible. We have nobody wants to make something up just to make me happy. I love the question, Marcy. And I'd love to have more mothers and daughters. I've had mothers send daughters and daughters send mothers. I've had husbands and boyfriends sponsor wives and to come, which makes me feel good because then it's because they know it's a safe container. Do you do any dancing at your retreats? Thank you. Just making up questions. Yes, we dance and we move and we sing. And you know what? I'm going to say something to you, Cher, about someday. Now that you were nice enough to talk, and now it's going to feel like I might be picking on you. I promise you I'm not. What I'm going to tell you about someday rarely happens. Someday is kind of like a lie, a sweet little fib we tell ourselves. Like someday I'm going to get on my Peloton bike and work out and lift weights. Someday I'm going to do that. I might even have that bike in my living room. And one day I might get on it again soon. What's true is that often someday doesn't happen. We have so many reasons. So many, she knew I would say that. Oh, good. My answer to the someday is call Christy. Let us help you figure out someday and get someday on your calendar. Get you in our support groups, get you in our community. Because once you say yes to someday, your life changes. And what's true for us, we're really not that hungry for your business. What's true for us is that we're chock-a-block full and we're making space because this work is so important. This work changed my life. This work changed everybody's life. And we want that for all of you. So don't say our no for us. Please don't say they won't, or they can't, or they won't be able to help me, or this won't work for me. Please don't say our no. I've gotten babysitters for people. I've gotten dog walkers. I've gotten everything. So is there anything else? Am I still married? Yes, I am still married. I'm not going to go any deeper than that. I have a very expansive life. And yes, I am still married. Glad to hear it. I'm mostly glad to hear it too. So, and I've been with him since I am 17 years old. I talk about that part, I don't talk about the present part, but yes, since I'm 17. Yes, he was an important part of my book. He's an important part of my life. Yes, he is. Thank you, Pat. I think he's a love warrior. I think he's a love warrior because he's brave enough to stay with me. Because I've been 5 different women, maybe 6 since he's married me. My hair has mostly stayed the same, except for this very short period of red. Anybody else? Okay, terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Brady. Thank you. And the title of my book, sure. Those are my legs. By the way, in case you care, I do. Those are my legs. Great stockings, huh? So the book is shameless. And you can still find it on Amazon. You might even be able to find it on Kindle. There's no audio. Got to read it. It's funny. And it was me a long time ago. It was me when I was you. How's that? It was me when I was figuring this out and before I brought it back to the body. So my beautiful, extraordinary, delicious team, anyone have something that's just in their bellies that they have to say? Something that's unsaid? You're good, Cosmo, everybody's good. So Ron would normally breathe this out, but if you're crunchy voice, I don't think it's gonna work, Ron. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to pretend I'm wrong. Okay, you ready for this? Okay. So we used to do something where we laughed ourselves out of a group like this. So we would take a breath in and we would let out a sigh or a sound. And then we take a second breath and let out a sound or a sigh or a growl, whatever wants to come out. And then with our third breath, we maybe let out a little chuckle or a little giggle or a little laugh. And then when you feel ready, you just blow a kiss goodbye. And know that we're loving you from here, this entire extraordinary team. And we're ready to find your yes and make someday soon on your calendar. So we'll take a big breath in and let it out with a whisper sound. Another big breath in. And then let's take a big breath in and let it out with a chuckle or a giggle or a laugh. And blow.
See you someday soon.
See you someday.
Bye.
Thank you guys. You're amazing.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.